Hey everyone, my name is Mason, and welcome to FilterGrade. Masking with the pen tool in After Effects is something you'll use almost every time you use this program. And you may be familiar with it already if you've used it in Premiere Pro, Illustrator, or Photoshop, and it works very much the same in After Effects. To get started with the pen tool, click on the pen tool from the toolbar. Click on where you want to start your mask, then click somewhere else, and a line will form between those 2 points. You can keep adding points this way to create a shape. To close the mask, just click back on the starting point. Congratulations, now you have a basic mask with geometric edges. Now let's move on to more advanced uses. To curve the lines you create with your pen tool, click and hold, then drag to create a Bezier line modifier. If you then create a second point, it will create a curve that you can adjust to fit a non-geometric shape. To turn a regular point into a curved point, hold Alt or Option on Mac and click a regular point to turn it into a curved point. If you want to edit only one side of the curve and not the other, hold Alt or Option while moving it. Hold Control or Command, then click on a point to delete that point. You can also click anywhere along a line to add a point wherever you click. To select and move multiple nodes at once, hold Shift and click on each point, then release Shift and move them around as a group. Using curved points can be difficult, but will result in an accurate and detailed mask. It may take some time to get absolutely perfect, but just take your time and fine-tune your masking. Using the pen tool in this way can also create infinitely scalable vector images. You can give it a fill color to make it a shape if you like. However, if you'll be using this to mask layers, you won't want to apply any effects to it. By default, you are adding the mask, meaning that the internal contents of the mask are visible and everything else is removed. Selecting Subtract in the mask properties will do the opposite. So here's an example of putting all of these methods together. You can see here I'm drawing a rough mask with nodes around the E in the After Effects logo, and now I'm going to turn some of these points into curves to try to match the curves of the E. Now this is kind of a process of going back and forth, readjusting lines, making them more precise as we go along. You can do whatever works for you, but in this case I wanted to get a very rough mask around it and then adjust from there. So as you can see, I'm making use of controlling 1/2 of the curves so that I don't mess up the entire curve and I can get some of these details where the E curves around. But of course on some sides I want it to be perfectly straight. And curves are always a bit difficult to get, and in fact the curves tool in the pen tool can be extremely difficult to master. You're going to want to make a lot of points if you are doing something precise like this. In this case, since I was trying to just do a quick example, I didn't use as many points or get as precise as you would if you were doing this for a real project. As you can see, I'm just kind of fine-tuning some of these, changing the mask between add and subtract so I can see what of the light purple is left to cut out. And now, as you can see, I can apply the mask and I can drag it around anywhere I want. Here's an example of how we might use the pen tool for masking in After Effects to create a transition between 2 video clips. This is going to be a very simple one, something that could even be done in Premiere Pro as well. So we have this clip of walking up to a mountain, and we have this clip of a starry sky. And right now, it's just no transition between them. So we're going to use a mask to create a wipe between the 2. So first of all, we're going to have to layer our second one under our first one. So we're just going to make sure the night sky is physically below the mountain clip. And then what I'm going to do is grab the pen tool with the top layer selected. I'm going to grab and go ahead and make a square. In fact, I'm going to use the rectangle tool for this just so I know that it's a straight square. And then we can see that mask has been added down here. And if I were to drag that, actually let's do subtract. We want subtract. We still want that layer to show up, but we want this mask. Need to press Shift to control all of the points and then drag, and then we use the mask to cover this. It gets rid of that layer. So let's actually go ahead and make sure that we make this wide enough that it will cover the entire thing. And then we can select all of the nodes again, drag it off to the side, and then animate this mask. So, starting here, we're going to go to the mask's properties, click mask path, so this is the starting point. Now we're going to move over to the end of this clip and just simply drag this mask to the end. And then we just can make sure to cut off that clip enough in advance. So now, if we go back, we should have a nice wipe transition. Easy. And of course, if you wanted to make that a little more natural, you could add in a feather. You can see a bit of fade in between the layers. This is probably one of the most simple transitions you could do with a mask and literally takes seconds. Let's look at a common example of using a mask. In this example, we have an actor walking across a scene, but there are some items in the scene that are distracting and you might want to cut them out. Since this tutorial is just about masking and not motion tracking, we're going to be using a stationary camera rather than a moving camera. In a perfect world, you will have a clean plate, an image or still frame of your background that doesn't have any actors or objects in it. Otherwise, you may be able to sample an area from a still frame of your shot. You can also use content-aware fill in some scenarios. Drag in your clean plate over your footage, then reduce the opacity so that you can see the bottom footage, and use the pen tool to mask around the rough area you want the objects removed from. When you've made your mask, set the opacity back to normal and you will see that the mask has covered the problem area. To animate your mask, you can use the timeline to create keyframes. This is useful, for example, if your actor walks in front of the object you're trying to mask out. With the current way the mask is set up, the mask will go over the actor and it won't look good at all. Open up the properties of your mask, select the frame right before the mask covers your actor, and set a keyframe. This will be your starting point. Now start moving frame by frame and adjusting the mask so that it masks what it needs to. Create additional masks as needed, following the same guidelines for animating them. To make the masks look more natural, you may want to slightly increase the feather. This creates a smoother transition between layers and reduces hard edges. However, feathering won't work very well when you're trying to be very precise with your lines. Depending on what you're masking, you may or may not need to be precise with the pen tool. If you're masking out something with hard edges against a complex background, then you will want to be as precise as possible. The same goes for when an actor or another object crosses over the mask area. But if your object is against a fairly uniform background, you may be able to draw a much looser mask and use mask feathering to make it look natural. Sometimes you can use content-aware fill. This is especially useful if your footage is moving or you don't have a clean plate to sample. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, so use this only for subjects on simple backgrounds. This was a crash course in using the pen tool for masking in After Effects. There are a lot of very powerful things you can do with masks, including compositing multiple layers into a single video sequence and erasing unwanted content from a shot. Let us know in the comments why you wanted to learn about masking with the pen tool and what awesome creations you're going to make. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. And if you're looking for professional LUTs, Lightroom desktop and mobile presets, Premiere Pro templates, and more photo and video education, visit FilterGrade.com today.